Welcome to Happy Homes and Gardens. I'm your host. My name is Daphne Royse. I'm a real estate broker, architecture and interior designer. Outdoor living is best in California from April to November, when the sun shines every day, whether it is barbecue with the friends and families, gardening, getting fresh air, or play with the pets. Astrid worked in the family garden in Germany with her parents since she was young. She understands the garden and can magically transform your yards into favorite place at home. Astrid is the founder and owner of Astrid Gaiser Garden Design in the Silicon Valley of the San Francisco Bay Area. She will share her creative designs of outdoor spaces. Hello, Astrid.
Hi, Daphne. Thank you for having me today. As Daphne already said, I'm in the middle of Silicon Valley, on the San Francisco Bay Area's outer side, not the east. I'm in Mountain View. I provide residential landscape design to people who want to live outdoors. And Daphne already touched on this one because it is so fabulous here. I mean, when I moved here from Germany, and that is now 23 years ago, I was like, oh my God, you can live most of the year outside. And it was fabulous. Didn't work at that time as a landscape designer, which Daphne has heard before, and, got into the gardening here immediately because there is a 10 months growth period here. And I loved it.
Tell us about you and how did you get into garden design, fashion?
Yeah. So I'm a computer scientist, like most people who live here, right? And then when I moved here, I realized that, the gardens were so fabulous. So I started gardening very intensively. And I got asked by a lot of my colleagues, friends, neighbors, family, how do you do this? And how do you do that? And, I wasn't actually a engineer at this point anymore. For many, many years, I did product management, meaning I would get requirements from people, and then I would help the engineers to understand what they would build so that they would fulfill the requirements. And so it is the same actually for garden design. So it was a very natural transition for me. I'm getting requirements from my residential customers. I turn them into something that a contractor can read. And the outcome is that they're building actually what the client would wish to have. As Daphne can probably tell you from her experience in architecture, it is a beautiful process when you go with your clients through this finding out what they really want, because a lot of things they haven't seen before when they start working with me. And so they have an entire, couple months of finding new stuff that they have never thought about. And, adding an outdoor kitchen where nothing ever was meant to be, having an outdoor gym, having, all of a sudden, they have the wildest ideas suddenly because they start looking at it and we start exploring, and it's a very beautiful process. And then I take it, and that is where my education comes in. I take it and turn it into a plan that a contractor then can understand. And then the contractor will actually build what they want, which is, that's the most fabulous thing about it, because I've seen sometimes friends end up with this idea of they can remodel a house or something like that themselves, where they go and just hire a contractor. And then they're quite overwhelmed by that process because they have nobody in between that does the translation. Now, the translation was what I did for many years before. In this case, it hasn't changed that much. I still love working with people. I like people. I enjoy working with people. So I enjoy working with my clients. And I still am very good in translating this into a technical document that other people, the engineers or contractors, can understand. I had to go back to school because 2 degrees in computer science will not help you was drawing out plans. So I went back to school here in the US and learned everything I needed to learn about landscape construction and about how to draw a plan and plant knowledge, because you won't believe it, but there are different plants here than where I come from. I'm having more of an East Coast plant palette that I grew up with. And so, I had to learn everything about what we can do here. And, lots of experimenting naturally in my own garden. That's about the history. I'm doing this now since 2005, and I love it. It's beautiful.
Sounds wonderful. Would you like to share some samples to our audience?
Yeah, that would be wonderful. So what I usually come into is a situation like this: juniper and, anything that survived without a lot of care. Often something that you want to rescue, maybe not the juniper, but, in other cases, yes. The entire landscape looks a little bit like the 60s because that's when that was built. Beautiful, beautiful planter that we rescued, but, not in the way it is currently. Everything looks a little used. Here is a 3 to 4 foot drop where you can really, do damage to yourself that had no railing. Everything looks a little bit, retaining walls are coming a little down. It feels like nothing was looked after for a while. Some plants do really well and multiply, and others have just died. There's a real squirrel problem because this is a non-fenced area. Squirrel, rabbits, deer, everybody likes to eat vegetables. Even an outdoor kitchen was there. However, that had a rat problem because it was built in a manner that, the rodents got in. Fire pit was, very tall, it looked a bit uncomfortable. Everything looked a little uncomfortable. Beautiful deck, just stunning deck, but with a very scary feature. You would look down into the staircase that nobody used, and it is like 20 feet above the ground. It is not comfortable to look down this way. So also here, no risers. All the steps had no risers. You could look right down. So very scary deck. It needed love. It just needed love, and it needed forethought. And this is how it looks after. So it's like, it has a railing. It has a nice, clean hardscape so you can get into the house without stumbling. It got color. We used these old planters that were left over from the 60s and popped them up a little bit. And, we planted everything that we planted, admittedly. Here you see the railing that keeps you from falling down, which is lovely. I'm just going through here. You see that the entire front yard, the juniper got out, and we put in drought-tolerant planting, lots and lots of large succulents that we actually harvested out of a garden in Berkeley, where we got those huge succulents for a very good price from the owner that was going into construction. And, he didn't want to keep them, and I just got them for the clients. We now have an entrance into the backyard. It is, if you're a deer, you can still walk around it because that is literally the only fencing we added, but it makes an impression. It makes it feel more welcoming. These retaining walls stayed, but much to your surprise now, they're hidden a little bit with 2 large and very nice vegetable areas, and with a deck, and with another deck. So they're kind of hidden now behind the hot tub, which is lovely. They're still there. Nothing got touched, but they're also not visible anymore. We have now a built-in hot tub. That's all our screening to the neighbor. We don't need more. The rest is all open. It's a wonderfully open, very natural area. One little water feature here, that's actually not that little. It's a 4-foot bowl. Very beautiful, very simple, standalone, nothing special, very water conserving. So, it recycles the water, and there's very little evaporation. You see these big succulents that we got from that mature garden. It just makes an immediate impact. That is it's 3 months after planting, and plants have already developed fabulously. I was very pleased with how quickly they took. that deck that was a little bit scary, not so scary anymore. We took the entire entrance into the downstairs away, closed this up because we didn't need to go down there, and we made a beautiful dining area out of it. So we really made sure that the clients could actually use all of their garden. We just opened it up and made it useful. Same thing when you go around the corner here, we added a bench that hit that, where you could peek down the 20 feet down, and we closed all the risers up so that you wouldn't look underneath the stairs and go like, oh, this is scary. It looks so much more comfortable to be on this deck now. And when you come back from the deck, you see how much entertainment area there was. The clients threw a party last year after this got done. It got done right before the 4th. They threw a party with 70 people, and they said they had ample space for the people to walk around and mingle and have a fabulous time. These umbrellas have heaters. They can tilt. They're just, they look like a piece of furniture. Big fire pit, comfortable seating. We added even more seating later on, but that was the beginning. And a kitchen that is rodent proof and, up to the code. And it looks nice. It is, it's easy to keep clean. I'm German. I like keeping clean. So, easy to keep clean. It's very nice. It has, instead of a barbecue, it has something like a Korean barbecue on there. Has a big wok burner. It's just fun. And they use it. My clients use it. And I'm just going through the rest here, showing, a couple details because it's fun to see. And lighting. There was a lot of lighting that went in here. And so they have a night garden, which personally I find very, very exciting. If you go out into your garden by night and you still see what's going on, one of the nicest things. And that gives you kind of a feeling of what, how it transforms what I do for my client.
Could you touch subjects about the Korean barbecue versus to the American barbecue?
Oh yeah. So that was because one of them wasn't eating meat and the other one wasn't a big meat eater. But they thought it was kind of cool to have some, it's like a griddle practically, right? It's like a flat surface. And I've used that for purely vegetarian couples as well, that would then put roti. They were Indian vegetarian couples, and they would put roti and vegetables on there to grill that. And then this couple here does, the occasional fish and, even the occasional meat, because that actually works for everything. It's more of a party. Not really, but I mean, it's very fabulous for a party. Let me put it like this. They're using it with just the two of them, but for a party, it's just fun because you can just kind of you see how I have this on the corner. So you can just kind of go around and everybody has its little, either a chopstick or a fork, chopsticks or fork. And, you can put your own little thing on there. It's just a fun piece, I have to admit. So it's very nice.
And I also have a question about the succulent plants. I understand that we probably need more drought tolerance plants.
Yeah.
And I know succulent was one of them. If people have a different approach to what kind of plants they would like to acquire when they design their gardens.
So what I do is, let me say that. Not all clients want to have this very arid look, which I totally understand. And so when we started to say drought tolerant about 15 years ago, most people went like, oh God, we don't want that. That's cactus, isn't that, Astrid? And I was like, no, it's not really cactus. What you guys just saw now, that is a drought tolerant landscape, and you won't believe it, but it indeed is. And it looks very lovely. It has grasses, it has succulent, it has grass-like plants that were like these phormiums out of New Zealand. It's a good mix of plants from South Africa, the Mediterranean, New Zealand, and naturally our own natives. So as you see, all these areas have the same requirements in terms of, not a lot of water during the summer, and then a lot of water, not so much for us anymore. Usually a lot of water in the winter. But these are all plants that are used to our situation here. And you can combine them very beneficially. When we did that purely that we wanted to only have California native plants, then I had these very disappointed situations where people would go, but we want to have flowers year round. And it's not really how our flowers work, right? If it's so, I educated my clients immediately, because that would be the consequence, would be that we would have a fabulous garden, say, March to beginning of June, and then it dries. It's very dry. So when the big 4th of July party comes, not that much blooming anymore. So hence that mixing in of the stuff that blooms in winter, that stuff that blooms in summer. It's like, yeah, we could maybe consider a couple plants that are still there for that 4th of July plant. For that 4th of July party. And so then we start mixing them in. So they're not purely native, but they are very used to our climate zone. So they're all very drought tolerant. So this entire garden you've just seen, which was very colorful for people who see it, it was a very colorful garden. That was all drought tolerant. The succulents were just an especially lucky grab, to be honest, because it's going to take them usually about 4 or 5 years to get this size. So that I lucked out, and I found out about this garden where the house was going into construction. We just were so happy with that, because it makes this entire garden look established right away. One more thing, Daphne, about this. The last time we had a drought, we did let a lot of our trees die because our state government said save water. There was no discrimination. So we saved water, and a lot of our trees that need water, like redwoods, did actually die. This time, thanks heaven, we worked really hard on that. We now know in the state of California. So it's not just save water, it's save water and save your trees. So you get to keep watering your trees, even if it gets really, really, if we have to ask for drinking water, then, the trees will have to not be watered. But as long as that is not the case, we are all encouraged to keep watering our trees. And that makes me very happy. So that's fabulous. Not all trees are redwoods, thanks heaven. So a lot of our trees are quite used to the situation here and are, more in the oak type of tree, which can really wait with the main watering until winter. And so, hopefully we'll get lucky and get all our trees through. But it's a topic that is very close to my heart, to save the trees.
Since you mentioned about trees, do people require any deciduous trees to be in their gardens so they have different colors throughout the fall and winters?
Yes, we get that. And thank you for that question. So yes, people have very distinct wishes, and it's often people like me that come from a colder climate that go like, oh, wouldn't fall color be nice? And I was like, yeah, we do have fall color. It's called poison ivy. They don't like that joke, but that's my usual fabulous fall color. But nobody wants it. So haha. Anyway, yes, there are a couple others that have really, there is one pear. It's the aristocrat pear that has fabulous color, and it's maybe not a super drought tolerant tree, but an okay tree. Pistache, beautiful color. Liquid amber, beautiful color. I'm just not a friend of the liquid amber balls that fall down, because I like
devil balls.
Yeah, these fruit balls that fall down, they're not so great for people with high heels. So I'm one of those. So I'll try to avoid those. But if people have a bigger area where we can plant them in the back, they do give very nice color. What I wanted to say was, there is a way to get my clients what they want. So they come from an area where they have, Japanese maples or something like that, right? And a Japanese maple likes its water. When they get old, really old, they're not very picky anymore, but they need to get really, really old, and they still would prefer water and not be completely dry, right? So a tree like a Japanese maple can still be used because we're going to have very small areas that we're watering heavily. So a lot of my planning has to do with grouping plants into areas so that they can be watered together. So what I do often is, before I do an irrigation plan, or before I do a planting plan even, I just decide that, I know roughly which trees need to go in. I place the trees. I have the client sign off on tree placement because that's often the most important piece. And then I group other plants with similar needs around it. Now, if the client would like to have, say, 2 maples in certain areas that are not close to each other, those areas around the maple, and I will plan for the full size of the maple, they get designed as the only medium to high water zone in that garden. And then we will use plants that like medium to high water underneath there. The rest of the garden, very thoughtfully, will be kept as either low water or very low water to offset this again. We have a state ordinance for a long time now that actually requires us to do this for new gardens or new buildings. And I find it immensely helpful, to calculate out how much water we really will be using and planning accordingly, because it gives you kind of a nice tool to not be a water hog. And so if you must have your maple or your 2 maples, I can do it without being environmentally, unconscious. We can do it in a sustainable way so that, you get what you need in small doses. The rest of the stuff is going to be adapted to the climate.
Do you have any opinion about natural turf versus to artificial turf, which is getting very popular lately?
Yes, I do. Naturally, I have an opinion. It's a lot of landfill because, it doesn't hold forever. And it's like it's installed. The artificial turf is installed as if you install a concrete patio, meaning there's going to be a good layer of base rock underneath. Then there is sand underneath. Then there's filler material that goes into the plastic. It is plastic. Let's just say there's a lot of landfill when this comes out again. And I don't know if you've seen it, but it takes the weeds that fly in from the top about 2 to 3 years to have weeds again in the artificial grass. So most people don't keep it for much longer than 7 to 10 years, it seems. It's a lot of rotation. So environmentally, not that taken. However, and now I have to admit, however, there are situations where this makes a lot of sense. And the situations are when there are slivers where they really want to see green. And I know they really will not be able to keep this up because it's either super dark or, whatever. But it's like there will not be a green grass situation ever because it will, you put it in and it dies and you redo it every 2 years. Then I would say, yes, let's do it. Having it in full sun is usually really hard on the feet because it gets so hot. So it's not very comfortable to run on. But, if it's the right situation and if it's a very small amount of this, I find that actually useful. So that is my takeaway. In general, I advise if you do not want to have lawn, we have beautiful, alternatives. One is called Curapia. Go and Google that one. Curapia. One is called Diamondia. That's a bit more gray. The Curapia looks nearly like grass. And then we have any time, like the woolly thyme that fills in very nicely. I walked around with clients yesterday to look at lawn alternatives. And she took her shoes off and she walked over that thyme lawn. That's cute. That's so cool. And actually, I'm lucky because it's June. So that is a lawn that is currently purple because that's when time moves. So it's a purple lawn. It's super soft. God, it's not always super soft, but yesterday's was super soft. So I was like, great. They loved it. They're going to use it. So I'm very happy. If it's super shady, hard to get the same effect. But, the three that I just called out, they actually will hold out to some foot traffic. If you have a big dog that needs to run on it, not so much. So then we will go back to a very drought tolerant sod. But so that's a lot of my discussions is like, what kind of grass? And then I don't know if you have that, but I have that in half my projects. Bermuda grass is overrunning everything else. And sometimes you just give up. You can fight it or you can give up. And sometimes we just give up and we let the Bermuda grass be where it is. And we put on top something that is called a modified Bermuda grass. And then the two of them can battle this out. The modified one is, let's just say it's not so much on steroids. It's a little bit, softer in its approach, but it will actually hold out against the other one. And you still have Bermuda grass. You got to like it, but, it will still be yellow in winter, but heck, at least you don't fight with your Bermuda grass. I'm not a big fan of fighting against nature because it makes my clients unhappy, as it would make me unhappy. So if I can do something that goes with nature, we'll go for the with nature part.
So in a big picture, what would normally involve in the garden design?
Good question. It actually kind of divides up very neatly into, three portions. The first portion is collecting data. Collecting data means also, understanding my client. So, if I do a garden for somebody, I spend a lot of time with them. It's not just that the garden gets measured, sun and shade gets observed. We're going to the building department, finding out what we can do, what the setbacks are. Well, it's actually more the planning department, what the setbacks are. We're talking to public works to find out if you have any easements from PG&E that we don't know about. So we get all that data, but the main thing is to spend time with the clients. Once the clients have, opened up to me, I can help them better. And they get help from me to open up. So they get homework. So they get to go and find fabulous pictures on House or on Pinterest or on any other website or cut out, out of magazines. Totally fine. Whatever they want to do. The main thing is to not restrict themselves. So they say, but we don't want to do a pool, but we like all these pool pictures. And I said, but maybe you want to show me what you like because while we're not doing a pool, I still get the feeling of what you like. Oh yeah, okay. So then they, so they get help. They get instructions, they get homework. And then we look at that and we do spend a lot of time together. So we go and see other gardens. We just talk about, what their goals are. I'm mainly oriented on their functional goals for the most part, because that they can actually express. The aesthetic goals I can usually pick up from what they collected for their homework and how their house is set up. And then that usually works just fine. So they don't need to define, I want to have X, Y, Z style. It's like that. I remember that at the beginning, I tried to make people answer this question, would you like a Mediterranean style? And they go like, what does that even mean? And I was like, good question. What does it even mean, right? It could mean something totally different for different people. So not doing this anymore. I just want to make sure you get functionally what you need, meaning if you need to have a bocce board, you will have a bocce board. If you need to have an area to meditate outside, you'll have an area to meditate outside. So I will simply ask for that, and the rest I'm taking from what I see. And after that, when the data is collected, we're going into what we call the conceptual design. The conceptual design And I'm going to share my screen one more time to show you how this looks like. So what I want you to see here for the conceptual design, we're using a 3D model so that you can actually see what you get. And you see here, this is the model of what we have seen before. Let me switch off the existing trees because they're actually a little bit in my way here. So you see this kind of scary situation here with the deck. And you see how this all panned out very, very nicely. I'm going to move this a little bit more. This is a fun toy. It's a really fun toy for my clients because they get to see what they're going to build. And we're playing with that 3D model until they have what they like. And I can stop sharing now, but what you saw is like something they can actually touch and play and look out from the inside. How would this look out? How does this look when I look out from the kitchen? Well, easy. You go inside and you look out. Is that going to be lined up with that? Yeah, that's going to be lined up with that. Or, can we add something? Yeah, sure, we can add something. How would it look like if this would have been a pergola? Oh, no problem. We model a pergola. So that is something that gives them as much fun as me. I have to admit, I do like it too. It's just fun. It's fun to, okay, I played with Lego as a child. I still love it. So it's like, for me, this is a bit like playing with Lego when I do this 3D model. It's lovely. You just see what you get. And so that is the most exciting part in that conceptual design phase. Once we nail ourselves down to a direction, then we do something that's even more fun. We go and visit other gardens, which is extremely fun because then you see the stuff in real life and they go, oh, that's how big that is. It's always nice when you get this, oh, right, this is how big this is. And oh, that's what you said about this hardscape. Oh, and that's why you think we shouldn't. And yes, then I can show the spots under concrete when somebody has concrete around the barbecue because stuff falls off the barbecue and concrete soaks up the oil. And then I can show that this is what you get if you use concrete around the barbecue versus how about we use porcelain tile here? Because then you can drop it and wipe it. Okay, that makes sense. But it's so nice to see it in real life. So I do spend a lot of time during that phase with my clients. Once they feel comfortable that they have picked out what they want, I go into creating the documents for the contractor. There is still, the question here and there for the clients. They need to still sign off the planting plan. They need to still sign off what lighting they want, this kind of stuff. But those are more details then. And then the last phase is really, where we go out, talk to contractors that I know well. Because, I like certain contractors better than others. And those are the ones I've worked with for many, many years. So we talk to those, we get a bid for the clients. And then during installation, when there is a question, I'll be there. Is there a question from the contractor or the client? I'll be there. And then there are phases where I really tell them, please call me when you do X, Y, Z, right? Or, when you run into problems getting your plans, because when I write that planting plan, it might be months before we actually plant. So by the time that, they get around, nurseries have maybe just stocked for winter, which means poinsettias, and we need to substitute with something they have available with. So I am involved throughout the entire process. If there's a misunderstanding between the contractor and the client, I get pulled in. I'm going to be there. I'm a hand holder for my clients and they like it. And that's really what this comes down to.
So do you design around the existing trees, plants, or structures?
If I can rescue a tree and it's healthy, I will rescue a tree. If it's really absolutely not possible, then, for example, somebody wants to have an ADU and we get to take the tree out by, signed off by the arborist in the planning department, we will take it out. But usually we try to avoid that. We try to work around it. There's nothing better than an established tree to make a landscape look immediately good. I have moved stuff all the way around. My own office is a fabulous example for that. I'm sitting between two massive trees that are heritage trees, and boy, that building got placed, and the foundation got placed somewhere else, and it's cantilevering over, so nothing touches the root. And we had those holes hand dug. I mean, we went through a lot of effort to not hurt the tree, and it looks beautiful. It fits so nicely into it. So I do a lot of things that keep trees alive. Yes, I'm very happy with keeping trees alive. If you want to, I can show you a couple of the bigger structures that we place, and then they often get built simply by a company that doesn't do landscape, but they do. It's a general contractor usually that builds this kind of stuff. All right, then we will take a quick look at a couple of the bigger things that we have done here, and you have seen this one already. Here is another one. This is one of these structures we placed. This was a outdoor kitchen. As you can see, that is a fairly substantial piece here. It actually has a space for a telescope, which was really fun. Telescope has its own little home here. And we've separated Hardscape from the kitchen and Hardscape for the telescope so that we don't have any vibrations. So there was a lot of work. The roof opens on top. This looks literally like an indoor room, but it is an outdoor room. And everything you ever wanted in a kitchen, including a pizza oven, is in here. And it's actually immense fun. Fridge, ice maker, everything you could just imagine is in there. Another one is, this is an extension of the house where we put an entire kitchen in. Oh, you see this one again, that Evo grill. In this case, we added a dishwasher and real hot water, so you can make tea outside. It's actually boiling hot water. A fire pit that is actually custom made, because we had a competition going between this client and his friend. The friend had a 300,000 BTU fire pit, and so we made sure that he had a 3,300,000 BTU fire pit. I know that's funny, but it was fun. It was fun to do, I admit it.
Is hardscape important for outdoor living?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. One of the most important things to decide on. As I just pointed out, if you would end up putting a concrete slab around your barbecue and you would drop something, you would have stains, right? Because fat stains will show on concrete. Now, what we have, for example, here on this surface here, those are porcelain tiles. They come from Italy. They're extra thick, so you can actually put them just right on sand, on a sand bed. In this case, we put it extra on a existing slab underneath, which was perfect. And then we mortared it in, and it is like an outdoor living room, pretty much. It is so nice to walk out onto. And whatever you're dropping onto it, you can hose it off because it is porcelain. It's like your plates you're eating from. Very impervious. There is no acid, there is no fat, there is nothing. There's no stain that can actually get to it. So one of my favorite things to do around a barbecue, and also actually a sitting area, because you will not believe how many red wine stains will be on your concrete if you put concrete down there. Great, really, really fabulous material. The other fabulous material here is, and now you're laughing because I'm not a big fan of the faux the artificial grass, but I am a big fan of the faux artificial wood. This is an engineered wood, and it is fabulous in its upkeep because this one can be hosed off. It doesn't need to be refinished. In contrast, this is real deck with wood. It needs to be refinished every 2 years to look good. This one will hold probably 12 to 15 years before it gets kind of unsightly. you could argue that, after that time you will take it out or you really get it washed, right? But, it holds out for a very long time. I have these decks around my office holding out fabulously. One of the most important decisions.
What are the popular patio furniture and outdoor fireplace in color?
Well, I like color. You have figured this one out. I have actually one example where I got a little bit muted for once, but in general, I also attract clients that like color. So, no surprise there, right? I often go all out with furniture. It's like very colorful and very, fun to sit in. This one is a mix of teal and blue and yellow. I mean, can't go much further out than that one, I guess. Well, you can, but, just want to say, this one here, that is a different one that has a lot of teal with an apple green. Now, this was a client that had actually painted their house in this color. That was not my doing. So I'm taking no responsibility for that one, but it was kind of a challenge to match this one. My own office, as you see, goes also in a very colorful garden. My office is a studio in the backyard. And this is what my office outdoor meeting room looks like. Admittedly, lots of color. So, huge neutral umbrella over it, but the rest is lots of color. Fun stuff, like fun chairs outside. I do have a fire pit wherever you let me put a fire pit. I also have heaters. Some are fixed installed. Some are movable, like this one. Personally, I found that so charming because it reminded me of a little robot that I always wanted to have. So I got that one. It's just fabulous. And, it's warm. It's perfectly warm outside. I can sit everywhere I ever want to. Loads of fun to be outside and warm and dry. So yeah, I'm a big fan of having very comfortable furniture and having a ton of warmth outside.
How long is the process normally take a garden transformation? And what areas you servicing?
All good questions. So the areas I'm servicing, to answer that up front, is preferably, around where I live, meaning Mountain View, Palo Alto, Los Altos Hills. Those are my absolute favorites because I can walk, bike, or run, or, sometimes even with the car there. But it's perfect because I'm so close. Love that, naturally. I do go down to Saratoga. I do go up to San Carlos. I go into Portola Valley. And that's pretty much my circle of activity. And then project sizes, depending really on how much you do, it could take for design anything between 3 months and 9 months. I've seen that before. And then for installation, it could take anywhere between 3 months and, a year and a half. So, in the year and a half, it's not that they're permanently building something. It's often that we have waiting times in between because something else needs to happen. Like, you can go so far and then the pool needs to go in, or you can go so far and then, the house needs to be finished. So, it can pull itself out over time. But great question. Thank you.
Thank you, Astrid. Thank you for a very informative interview with me.
You're most welcome. It was a pleasure. Thanks for hanging out with me.